Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Where we continue to follow the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden now.
Those are just some of the scenes overnight as thousands of Americans gathered in celebration of Osama bin Laden's death.
Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill says he has thought about the mission every day since that May Day in 2011.
For multiple conversations you had with Rob O'Neill over the past year and a half, how'd you get
access? And you described that his head kind of exploded when you hit him.
I actually hit him 3 times because I shot him twice when he was standing and once on the ground.
That is the fucking American badass right there.
Go, go, go. We are not going for fame and we are not going for bravado. We are going for the single mom who dropped her kids off at elementary school on a Tuesday morning, and then 45 minutes later she jumped to her death out of a skyscraper.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
I'm Rob O'Neill, and this is the Operator Podcast. Okay, another week down. Actually, the first week of President Trump's new administration with a lot of the hearings going on. I'm sure you've been paying attention. I know I have. It's been quite a bit of fun. Lots to address. Seems like there's a lot happening, and we'll get into the whole administration, how I think everything's going, hopefully get how you think everything is going at the Operator Podcast on Instagram. That's the one to follow for sure. Definitely not shadow banned there. Other ones like at Mchooyah, MCHOOYAH, have been a little bit too. They're saying that Meta's changed courses, and a lot of people who have been punished for being naughty are not being punished anymore, which remains to be seen. But at Mchooyah on all social media, I'll look for you. I'd love to hear what you think, what you want to hear, if you agree or disagree. And it's nice because if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I'm doing my best not to talk trash. I think negativity will eventually catch up to you. It seems like there's a lot of that out there, especially with the World Wide Web. Myself included. I've been negative to people too. Did a little bit yelling at the church this weekend. I'll talk about that, get a little bit into detail. Not yelling at the church, yelling about people in the church. The church itself I like. Down with Jesus. It's all good. Addressed that. Did some traveling. I was able to get back to ECU, East Carolina University, go Pirates, because it was on the way to Myrtle Beach, where I took one of my daughters. We went and had a one-on-one trip. Beachfront property in the freezing ass cold. And I'm here to tell you, being from Montana, and I've talked before about all of us, wherever we grew up could be a bubble. Me personally, Butte, Montana, which is right on the Continental Divide. I didn't know if the earth was flat on the other side of the East Ridge where the waters go left and right. I was one of those guys that says, I just got to get out of here type stuff like that too. But hell, the earth might be flat now too. AI's been funky lately, crushing our stock market because of algorithms. But I get in these algorithms when I take my night pills, and I'll just scroll through some reels. And for some reason, the flat earthers love me now, and I'm watching them. It's funny. So I thought the earth might be flat over the East Ridge of Butte, Montana, but based on Instagram, maybe it already is. Whatever. But growing up, I didn't understand how people couldn't drive in snow. It didn't make sense to me. It should have. Going to South Carolina during this really weird snow and ice storm, maybe it's better just don't leave home if you've never driven in snow, because it is an acquired taste and you have to learn how to do it. And it's one of those things where in the moment of panic, not even panic, but like even a heightened sense of adrenaline, you have a tendency to get jerky. Not like that jerky Navy guys. But like it's easy to, your initial reaction is to slam on the brakes or jerk the steering wheel. And if you're sliding anywhere, hydroplaning or on ice, God forbid, on snow, if you hit the pedals, you're going to spin out. If you hit the brakes, you're going to go one way. If you hit the gas, you're going to go another way. if you jerk the steering wheel. Anyway, the drive from wherever down to Myrtle Beach, man, I've seen so many. I saw a lot of cars in ditches. It didn't seem like a lot of people were hurt. I'm not trying to make light of it, but just based on the flag in South Carolina, there's a palm tree on there. We should assume they don't have the snow plows or even snow shovels for that matter. I saw people outside of businesses trying to break the ice in front of said business to the point where like dudes would break the ice through half of a frozen crosswalk and then stop and let that business. You know what? If you're out there doing that, just go ahead and hook up the rest of the people because it happens fast. Slipping on ice happens fast. Cars crash into each other, roll into ditches, and it's. Anyway, we went down there. It was fun. I had a chance to. I went to the Wax Museum. Yes, awesome. It was I went to Ripley's. It was Ripley's Aquarium too. I saw a bunch of sharks, pretty cool sharks too. Sawfish. If you ever get a chance to see a sawfish, they're big, they're long, and they're like major endangered. You can recognize them because it looks like a saw on their nose, but it doesn't start up. And I actually had one of the biologists tell me that. I just being curious because the way you learn stuff, obviously there's a lot of ways. Failure, getting tapped out. Stuff like that. Asking questions is a way to learn. And I asked, what does the saw, because they look like they're slow. And I asked, what do they use the saw for? Is it like primarily for hunting or for defense? Because I don't know where these things live, but Mother Ocean, man, we haven't touched much of that. And there's some things out there, some predators out there. Is it just for defense? And the response from the biologist at first was, well, yeah, the saw doesn't spin like a chainsaw does. I'm like, noted. Don't crank his tail because he won't start up. But some of these things, there were a couple different versions. They might have 3 or 4 at this aquarium. Badass. And they wwere, that saw is long, but these 18 feet long, 20 feet long. And they were like, yeah, these are small ones. That's pretty cool. Saw a 71-year-old turtle swimming around, and she was the mother kind of it's like 71 years old. You're almost old enough for your first term in Congress. Really cool place. Went down there with my daughter. We had a lot of fun. We have an ongoing conversation, myself and my followers, with a lot of conversations. One of them is, what's the best cheeseburger? Because when I go out west, I love to hit up In-N-Out. And I think the furthest east I've seen In-N-Out would be near Salt Lake City, but correct me if I'm wrong. There could be more, but they don't like the franchise. I don't think that'd be a cool franchise. But I love In-N-Out. It's almost hard to say which is the best, right? It depends on where you are at the time. But In-N-Out's for me always good. Animal style, the hidden menu type stuff, delightful. Wahlburgers, excellent. I really love those burgers, and obviously Five Guys are really good. But you know what there was down here in Myrtle Beach that we haven't mentioned was Fuddruckers. Good burgers. So we went in there. My daughter had never been to Fuddruckers. I like Fudd because they've got like the whole chow line of ingredients for your burger. And it's not just like onions and pickles. It's like onions, raw onions, then chopped onions, and then pickles, but relish and chopped pickles, and all kinds of sauces. They got the heated cheese, which is a no-brainer. The fry sauce. I still think, again, not on the paleo diet, but dipping those Fudd fries into some cheese, followed up by a little bit of mayo. Okay, I'll spend an extra 3 minutes on the treadmill for some of those bad boys. It was delicious, but had a good trip down there. On the way back, I was able to go to Sup Dogs, which is my favorite place. I'm saying my favorite a lot. Sup Dogs, though, in Greenville, North Carolina, is dope. Great customer service, awesome people. And all right, I'm going to admit it. I went in to watch the NFC Championship game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington somethings. Still mad about that, but I did go for most of it. Eagles. Now, is it just me, as a diehard Redskins fan my entire life, loving the NFC East, respecting the other teams that were there? Am I the only? Now, if you're currently a Washington Commanders fan, Good on you for sticking with them. I lost it. Not lost it, but I lost, the love you have for, I don't know, your mom. I had that for the Redskins, and then they just took it away. You can't just make the Commanders the command. Anyway, as a Redskins fan, I really hated the Eagles. I have never wanted the Eagles to win more than I do right now. Not that I mean, you got to respect the Chiefs. I know they get some calls, but even the team's great. It's really hard to dislike Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's just awesome. But the whole team's awesome. And the fans are awesome. Like, I'm still talking about Kansas City, not Philly. Philly fans are the opposite of awesome. However, I love the Philly fans for a different reason. Just the Chiefs winning 3 in a row, man. That seems like it'd be too much. I think, again, not an expert, just a guy with a microphone and a camera and some listeners. I think the Eagles have put together a team that could beat the Chiefs simply because of Saquon Barkley. You got to admit, he opens it up, and then you got Jalen Hurts, who's yeah. And plus, if you see his story, like him with his dad, like, you want him to win. So, City of Brotherly Love, I will be rooting for the Eagles, and that's the first time in my life I've ever said that. I used to say I wouldn't cheer for the Eagles if they were playing ISIS. Not the case anymore, and it's an unfair comparison. I just thought it was kind of funny, but yeah, man, I won't say the. I want to see a new Super Bowl. That's me. But speaking of news, but anyway, Sup Dogs are great. Went there, and it was just cool to see everybody there. If you're there for some ECU football, also look for me because I'll make a surprise appearance. But yeah, man, it's a great place. Definitely, it's one of those places. It's not exactly on the way to anything. It's kind of a destination, but Sup Dogs is great, and then so is. And again, not an ad. This is just good biz. However, got back to the studio just in time because there's a lot going on. I'm usually concerned, not really. How am I going to fill up a lot of time? Because there's that buffer in between. Do I want to do like a full hour more? When I interview people, it goes longer because it is interesting. But also there's like, do you want to keep it to 45 minutes? Because usually you want to keep it to about the length of someone's workout. So I don't know, but we'll see. I normally wonder if I'm going to keep content long enough, and then I start to take notes about all kinds of stuff, and then I do here, and all of a sudden I'm talking about cheese fries, mayonnaise, and the fucking Eagles. But Super Bowl's coming up. Good news. I don't know if it's a deterrent, but since we have the new Secretary of Defense, the new military is back. I think deterrence is a good word because that's back. Hopefully we get back alliance solidarity. But because I like it, deterrence, I'm not going to say who until I get their permission. But so remember that shooting in New York of that CEO dude walked up behind him, blasted him, killed him, scumbag. Luigi became, I said his name. He became like one of those I love you from jail and conjugal visits. It's a horrible joke. I'm thinking of a joke. It has nothing to do with me, but somebody said that I'm not even in jail and I don't get conjugal visits. But because of that, a lot of people started to and you do need to realize that stuff can happen really, really quickly. That's like the thing with the pedals. That's why the thing with muscle memory. That's why if you have a gun, which you should, you need to shoot that. If you have a pistol, you need to shoot it 1,000 times. You should probably draw it from whatever holster you're wearing with whatever jacket or shirt or cargo pants I've seen. You should practice drawing it for at least 1,000 times and know how the gun works, especially in a malfunction. And also have a pump action shotgun because you don't need to draw that. You just need to pump and you get action. So that's cool. But yeah, so it's exciting. I do want to talk about. I have a new sponsor for the show, The Operator, and I want to thank them for this. They're really cool. Qualia Senolytic. Sorry about that. It's a tough one to say. Qualia Senolytic is my new sponsor. And if you haven't heard about, and I've obviously been using it for a while, I'm still getting used to saying Senolytics. But have you heard of Senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called you can write this down, the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. You know how we're all invincible, right? I was like that, especially as a young Navy SEAL, especially right after Buds. I would even brag about, I'll quit doing this bad habit once I stop running 6-minute miles, which I lied, but the 6-minute miles, because when it comes to energy and productivity, like Father Time is not your friend. The aging process is not your friend. So Qualia Senolytic, you got to check it out. If someone would have told me that there are science-backed ingredients that could help me feel 15 years younger in a matter of months, first of all, I wouldn't have believed it because it's just one of those things where you're trying to find something that works. But then I tried Qualia Senolytic, and it's incredible. As we age, here's some cool stuff that I learned about this. Everyone accumulates senescent cells in their body. Not only am I telling you about an awesome product, I'm also teaching you new words. As we age, we accumulate senescent cells in our body, and senescent cells cause symptoms of aging, like discomfort, recovery time on your workouts. Like even when you're 25, 2 days after leg day, the toilet doesn't really care. But you notice recovery time takes longer, and that's actually where we gain muscle. But like physical, mental loss, you're feeling middle age basically. But these cells are known as, this is an easier way to remember, they're known as the zombie cells. They're old and worn out and not really serving a useful function for our health anymore, but they're taking up space and nutrients from our healthy cells. So just like you're pruning a plant, getting rid of getting rid of that stuff. That's what this does. And it takes 2 days a month. Take this 2 days a month. Non-GMO, vegan friendly. The ingredients, they're meant to complement one another, and they really help you feel better. Higher energy levels, like I said, 15 years younger. Anyway, I'm going to tell you how to get this. You can resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to qualialife.com/theoperator. That's QUALIA life.com/theoperator for 50% off, and use code theoperator at checkout for an additional 15% off. All right. That's a big savings to try this. I'm giving you pearls here to feel better. So for your convenience, Qualia Senolytic is also available at select GNC locations near you possibly. The easiest way to do it, though, is qualialife.com/theoperator. QUALIA life.com/theoperator for an additional 15% off. Go check this out. You'll be happy. I'm happy. So during my travels, I did also notice that it's difficult to turn on any station without someone talking about Donald Trump, his administration, and what they're doing right now. And he's fulfilling promises, right? And it's pissing a lot of people off. Well, the standard liberal media is pissed off, and they're all up in arms about everything, even though a lot of it makes sense. I mean, a lot of it's come true, too. Remember the way that they painted Donald Trump when he came down the escalator in 2015. And he, you've seen it with everything where they just cut stuff out and add new stuff too. He mentioned, the way the whole hate thing started with him is when he said crossing the border among the masses are drugs, murderers, rapists. He's been proven right. But that's when the media jumped all over him and they just started shouting all these horrible things about him when the entire time, Donald Trump didn't need to take this job as president. He was doing all right, married to a supermodel, having one of the nicest compounds, if you will, in the world, and a great golf game. They just started yelling, but now he's back for his second term, 4 years after his first term. And he's actually, I think, the only president in American history to have higher ratings in his first week of his second term than he did at his entire first term. And that'll tell you something about what's happening. He didn't change. The American people may have changed, but most importantly, because of people like Elon Musk, the acquisition of X, we are no longer forced to look at a caricature made up by the legacy media, what they want you to see. And the violence showed up. It affected a lot of us. Definitely affected interest rates with all the free stuff that we're giving, the facilitation of mass illegal immigrants. And a lot of people are just tired of it. And Donald Trump's been saying the whole time he wants to clean it up, and that's what he's trying to do. But I did get upset one more time. And I give myself my own advice every single day, and that doesn't mean I always take it. But I give it to myself. And one pillar of good leadership is don't make decisions based on emotion. Give yourself a second, even if a second's all you have, to step back, take a deep breath, and realize if you're really angry about something or you're just getting so fired up. And that happens a lot too, especially with politics and especially with this. It's even, I hesitate to say the 24-hour news cycle because it's faster than that. And it's up, it's down, it's forgotten. But that's when the emotions come in. And again, it's easy to spin up on social media. And a lot of social media is not real. People in person are a lot better in person than they are on social media. But something happened with, one more thing happened with the Catholic Church that just really upset me. And that was Pope Francis calling mass deportations of immigrants a disgrace. Now, we are not deporting immigrants. We're right now deporting illegal aliens who are criminals. And the violent ones are going now. But again, I'm going to say this slowly because if you don't really make yourself clear, you might offend stupid people. Like I say, if someone comes into this country illegally, they broke the law and they are a criminal. And that riles people up for some weird reason too, even though if you're in this country buying anything, your tax dollars, a lot of them are going to support illegals. And the Pope called it a disgrace because the Pope was, he was born in Buenos Aires, right, in Argentina. I didn't know this either. He actually spent time as a bouncer and studied as a chemist, which I think is kind of cool. So he's not an idiot, but he knows what he's doing. And the Marxists will use anyone and anything to push their junk, to push their crap on us. And that's anything, man. Religion, people, death and taxes, immigration, war, the threat of war. Nothing's off limits. And the Pope just seems he bought into it. He hates capitalists. He has sort of seen communism. He thinks he likes it. He hates capitalists right up until the point we put our money into the coffers at church, right until we fund them. Because the church needs to save money too to pay tax. No, they don't. They don't pay taxes. So, and have you seen, ever seen the Chair of St. Peter? The tax-free life and luxury that comes from a vow of poverty, it astounds me because they're not eating bad either, and they're probably getting the best wine, and I don't have a problem with a lot of that, but I think this Pope is a Marxist, and I talked to my mother after tweeting out that I'm not going to give a dime to Catholic Church. That's not fair. I said I'm a practicing Catholic and went to Catholic school, and I'm not going back until this Pope is gone. But then someone reminded me, well, if you're not going to church and getting the Eucharist, then you're not a practicing Catholic. Okay, fair. And like I say on this podcast, if I say something, even on a tweet like that was, and then I'm wrong, I'll admit that I'm wrong. So I responded sort of to myself saying, I talked to my mom. I did read some of the comments and realized, like any huge organization, which, this church is, the Catholic Church is, and I'm not picking on Catholics simply because I'm a Catholic. A lot of these big religions are a lot like governments. A lot of people in power want to stay in power, and they have a lot of power. And with power, with this fame, a lot of people get sucked into it, and I hate to see the Pope being one of them. But a prime example, and I'll back it up right now. A prime example is the Ten Commandments are not that hard to understand it. Most of them are basically saying, look, you believe in God, one God. I'm that guy. I'm that God, not that guy. Sorry, everyone. But there's also one in there that says, thou shalt not kill. All right. And I don't really care. I'm touching on a controversial subject, but abortion is killing a baby. And if thou shalt not kill, and you got people like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden who were basically advocating for abortion up to, including birth and sometimes after birth, that's killing. They should be excommunicated from the Catholic Church, not given communion for a photo op, which is what Nancy Pelosi did a couple of years ago with the whole Poly P thing and all that. And she was getting a nice, photo op for just to because she's a hey. I've never met her either. Say what you will, and I have said some. She's a damn good politician. But again, too, it's almost like when I give money to church where I'm a member, I love the church. I love the priests that work there. My daughter was baptized there. And I think now when we give money to that church, that's for that church, for that Catholic school, for the community. So after getting properly scolded, which you know who you are, you Catholics. We've all been like that as Catholics. So I am not going to stop going to church, and I will keep giving my tithing. But, look at a lot of the stuff that goes on out there. A lot of Catholic charities out there, they're making billions due to refugee causes. So they advocate for open borders. Why? Because their checks keep coming in. Isn't that a vicious cycle? Because I know I talk a lot about money and agencies, but it does seem like a lot of places, man, they tug at your heartstrings, making decisions based on emotion, send money in there, and the money doesn't get to where it's always going. And a lot of people make a lot of money. A lot of these charities and NGOs and all that stuff. But the issue that I have too with the Pope sitting there behind his huge wall and security, I think there's a Swiss guard, right? I know that in one of my favorite movies, Eurotrip, the hooligans from England are yelling because they hate them fucking eye ties, but they said I think they're Swiss guards. Anyway, but a lot of security at the Vatican, a lot of big walls there where we can't just let migrants in, but then a lot of big talk coming from behind those walls that are paid for by people who make money as capitalists. So there's that. And I also, over in the Vatican too, there are a bunch of huge paintings and statues of former popes by some really famous artists too. Really nice arts of work. And I'm not saying it's not a great place, but not exactly a Jewish carpenter rolling in sandals, I don't, you'll hear some of these mega church guys say, well, Jesus wore fine linens. No, he didn't. He's born in a manger, dog. But I'm not all, I think that your faith should be between you and God too. I personally love going to church because, well, depending on Valor's attitude that day, I like to listen to the readings. I like to listen to the gospel, and I love to hear the homily too. I want to hear what they have to say. And I actually pay attention when I'm not wrestling with a soon-to-be 1-year-old bebe. But it's a good place to meditate, if nothing else. And again, too, I've gotten to the point now too, especially since Ibogaine, since I did some plant-based medicine, which I talk about, DMT too, is I remember the thing was, well, church, because there's mixed emotions too, because Catholic Church isn't like a Southern Baptist church where, hello, awesome, and we're going to sing and rejoice. Catholics are we kind of, hate ourselves. And at what age do you bring a kid to bore him to death? When I was young, an hour in church and not caring what they say, especially not dynamic, the music, give me one of those Southern Baptist choirs and a band, man. Okay. But anyway, now for me, because I'm at that age where I don't mind some time to reflect, talk about speaking slower, an internal dialogue, if you will. I do enjoy it. I am going to go back, but this quote said the reason that I'm talking about these statues of men and these portraits of men is because you're not supposed to idolize man, right? We've seen it before with Islam. You draw a picture of Muhammad and publish that, see what happens, because you don't worship men, you worship God. I wrote this quote down from 1 Timothy 2:5. For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, that man Jesus Christ. Basically, that's what it says. The mediator is the Son of God, who is God, the Holy Spirit. You don't need a man. You don't need a place to go. That's also why the church really stands up against that, because, well, if you don't need to go to church to worship God, but as all men, we're not made perfect. We're made in the image of God, but we're fallible. And I've tried to see the reason to listen to guys like Pope Francis. If you look at Pope John Paul, anti-communist, he was part of the reason I had Drago on a few years ago. I'm going to put his on my Rumble page too. It's also at Mikuya, and I keep saying I'm going to bone that thing up. But Drago explains when Pope John Paul came, they knew that Soviet communism was almost over, and that's what a pope does. He doesn't embrace communism like this one does. But I was PO'd before Pope Francis said that this is an outrage, and that goes back to February of 2024. So almost a year ago, February 15th, sex workers and activists took over St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. And they had a funeral for a transgender activist they called Cecilia. Born a man, now Cecilia. And again, grown-ass man, woman. But what he wants to be a she, privacy of his or her home. Enjoy your life and do what you need to do to be happy. The Catholic Church is not the place for a funeral, especially during the liturgy. Attendees there were cheering, applauding, and they chanted Cecilia, Madre de Putas. Now, my Spanish is a little rusty, but the Pope, man, he's from Argentina. He speaks Spanish. I believe that translates roughly to mother of whores. Not appropriate language. And Cecilia, by the way, prostitute sex worker, advocated for sex work. And again, not you do you, not in the Catholic Church, and should not be approved or have the headshed of the church say, well, we didn't know after the fact. I mean, we're talking activists shouting and screaming before the thing started. And I'm only going to use the word blasphemy. That's the final time, I hope. Walking down in front of the tabernacle, literally butts hanging out. Assholes on elbows trying to find a nice spot at the pew for the Madre de Puta. And even from the pulpit, someone who was speaking there said, this whore, this great whore, Saint Cecilia, mother of all whores. That, again, does not seem appropriate for this Catholic Church. So that had me concerned. Timothy Cardinal Dolan in New York, he did go in and have a mass of reparation, I think, to cleanse the church from the sin that was brought into the church. If you want to do it outside, as long as you, and again, I don't know why this is controversial, as long as you're not strutting around nude, showing your ass to kids, you do whatever you want. Inappropriate for public, inappropriate for a church for sure. But Cardinal Dolan said he didn't know it was going to happen. A lot of the priests said they didn't know it was happening. I don't even know what Pope Francis said about it, but you'd think when someone wants to have a funeral like that, how do they pull the wool over your eyes? A venue that large. You didn't do a quick search, a Google search, or just, I don't know. It just seems like that's something you should know. I know a lot of Catholics that have left the church over stuff like this, and I was gonna be one of them. I'm not anymore. Happy to say that, but I mean, what? Come on, New York. Also, like St. Patrick's Cathedral, funerals there for Andy Warhol and RFK, Babe Ruth, and now Cecilia, Madre de Putas, which is bad, bad, bad. And you were seeing this in they're almost trying to do this. Not the advocates, but the activists. We talked about it last week. The first woman to hold a position, the bishop of the Episcopal Diocese in Washington. Okay, the Episcopal Diocese in Washington, D.C. Roger that. And that's one of my new favorite names, Bishop Marianne Edgar Booty. Or Buddy. But I mean, literally gets up there in her calm little liberal voice. I just want you to lecturing the president and the vice president. Show mercy. I don't know. I mean, if you're not breaking the law, you got nothing to worry about. Have mercy on if you're doing something legal. Again, if you're adult behind closed doors, no one's going to come after you. But that's just the fear that they sow. Because again, like I talked about a couple minutes ago, that's what Marxists will do. Just use anything to keep you afraid. So I'm back in the church. Thank goodness. I'm still going to say the rosary. I think if you just make peace with God. Bear with me here. Maybe none of us are smart enough to understand God. Maybe God's just right. And like when we show up to heaven, which again is an interesting conversation because I think the only people who go to hell are people who think they deserve to. But like when we show up, every denomination and God just kind of like that sniper on the rooftop, But I do like to do this day in history some of these times. So I thought it was just fitting that on this day, January 29th in 905. Oh, I said it. 905. Sergius III came out of retirement to take over the papacy, speaking of Catholics, from the deposed anti-pope Christopher. Anti-pope's an interesting segment, too. Did you know about that? That happened hundreds of years ago for hundreds of years. But like any other man-run... I'm trying to think of a word not quite as harsh as mafia, but whenever you start getting people involved, not God. Well, debatable. When you get people involved in the name of God, people start they really start jockeying for position in the hierarchy. And an anti-pope was famous for a couple hundred years because when a pope dies, they bring the cardinals into the Sistine Chapel. And they vote for a new pope. Obviously, some people don't like the new pope, so they had the anti-pope, which to me sounds kind of sadistic, but that's what happened in 904, and then from anti-pope to the pope. That's what we're doing. Sometimes when I am on this podcast, I will mention golf. I also do on social media, I mention golf. I love to golf. Tough game. It takes a lot of practice. You would think it would be easy. It almost seems like hitting a stationary ball on the ground is harder than hitting a fastball flying at you. Can't back that up either. But I was thinking about them because of today's sponsor, Public Rec. Go to publicrec.com. I bring it up because they make really cool work pants, stylish pants that feel like sweats. But I bring that up because I love to wear their pants to my golf club because you can't tell they're sweats. And I don't know if you know that some golf places get hoity-toity and they really stick by the rules. These are sweats. You can't even tell. Public Rec has them. They got a lot of really comfortable stuff, too, that's stylish, so you can stop suffering in regular pants. For a limited time, our listeners get 20% off when you use code The Operator at publicrec.com. Go check out publicrec.com, 20% off. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Got to say The Operator Podcast because I'm just legit telling you where to go, making your life better. Say goodbye to pants that put up a fight because when comfort meets style, you have found Public Rec. And the way these pants are described, you can read some of the testimonials online. I'm giving you mine right now. Awesome line of clothing. Deal makers, day makers, game changers, and chinos. And they got these high-end button downs. It just looks slick. They're comfortable. I mean, looking like you, dressing like the job you want, but being that comfortable. But seriously, you can upgrade your entire wardrobe up instantly. Go to publicrec.com. Check it out. Use code THEOPERATOR. Get big savings. Look great, feel great, and just be awesome. Publicrec.com, code THEOPERATOR. But it almost seems like, and I could be wrong again too, but it almost seems like normalcy is sort of coming back because we've been trying to lie to ourselves for a while. Well, like I think the toughest job in the White House has got to be the press secretary, because you got to deal with the press pool and you got to speak on behalf of the president, which generally means, as far as I know, having spoken with Ari Fleischer, Dana Perino, who were both press secretaries, you need to talk to the president, speak on his behalf, so you're briefed by the president pretty much every day when he's in town. So what we were used to seeing with Karine Jean-Pierre, Jen Psaki, it either seemed like a blatant lie or I'll circle back. And then there's always a binder full of all the correct answers. Again, not an easy job. It's not an easy job. Even when the press is on your side or actively promoting your agenda, so you don't need to take responsibility. But Caroline Leavitt just took over. She's like 26 years old, very impressive. No binder. She did speak to the president, talk to him directly, and little things like she came out today, said, I just spoke with the president, and he wanted to announce that those drones that were over New Jersey and the East Coast of the United States were ours. They were FAA approved, and then just because of the limelight, the spotlight they were in, other people, drone enthusiasts, which probably a fun hobby. You know, it's going to get to the point where it could be dangerous, but so's everything. I mean, it used to be like Gary and Wyatt used their computer to create the perfect woman. Now it's like, shit, these things are smarter than us, and they're going to kill us all. James Cameron tried to warn us about it in Terminator. We didn't listen as usual. But she came out, Caroline came out. She just sounded good because she's saying to the press, I'm going to tell you the truth as best I know how, and I'm hoping the integrity comes back this way as well. And she invited like over 400, everything from reporters to podcasters to submit their application to be a part of the press pool, which would be great too. I mean, and you know, they all tried the gotcha questions, and they're so outraged, they being the press are outraged that we're invading schools and taking away children. It's like, come on, dude. Talking points again. I don't know how many times pundits can call Trump Hitler again. Still going after him, the Hitler thing. Still want to impeach him. They can't do it now because Republicans, even in name only, do own the Congress, so they shouldn't impeach. But they're going to try it again. Usually, historically, the midterms go for the party who's not in the White House. Who knows now? We do have short memories, and people will, they have already forgotten that Barack Obama deported 1,000 people a day for 8 years. So there's that. And then they're already saying, because there was an issue too with Colombia, which is kind of funny. Right now they're saying in the press, but one of their gotcha questions is, well, coffee's at whatever high it was at for his entire second term. It's like, okay, the 10 days or whatever, give us a break. And the whole thing with Colombia, coffee had a 45-year high under Joe Biden. So it was, the prices are high now, but something with Colombia. And so President Trump decided with Colombia, we're going to put 25%. No, because of the migrant things, they flew 2 planes of migrants down to Colombia where the president wouldn't allow them in. They wouldn't allow them in the airspace. So Donald Trump, before he went golfing, said 25% tariffs on everything Colombian, and next week it'll be 50%. And immediately liberal pundits, some that I've joked with, young men who touch misguided but are paid well by the Democrats and well-spoken, immediately got into social media saying, look what happened, and now Colombia's winning, blah, blah, blah. Trump probably wasn't to the 4th hole, and Colombia said, you know what? My bad. We'll just do everything you just said. Please don't destroy us, Papa Trump. And I didn't have a problem with Barack Obama golfing. I don't have a problem with presidents golfing. As a guy who owns clubs, belongs to some country clubs and goes golfing, I'm not saying I'm a golfer, you can work on the golf course. That's what a lot of people do too. It's easier to arrange a meeting with potential business partners on the golf course than it is in your office, because your office sucks. Your office might not suck, but golfing, well, being outside in the sun is better than being in an office. But just to watch the way this is unfolding, like CNN, okay, we're deporting people now, and Americans, especially who live in these sanctuary cities, are like, awesome. But CNN was saying there's going to be chaos and riots. And no, not really. America's just different right now. And CNN's getting lower ratings than SpongeBob reruns, and I'm not making that up. As far as I know, I'm not making that up. But I saw a segment the other day where, and I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, Donald Trump's the only president to have higher approval ratings than any time during his first term. A guy is on air with CNN anchor, I forget her name, and maybe a fabulous person, never met her, but she's over there rolling her eyes. And he's saying, look, I just brought the facts. It's a CNN poll, and she's calling it fake news on her own network. And I think maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, the midterm shift and the agenda shift, but the far left had 4 years to try to convince us of all their shitty ideas, and they just show us stuff that's broken. Let's just bring... What was this fascination with drag queens reading to kindergartens? Why we got to sexualize everything in school? Why do we have dudes with tits showing them on the south lawn of the White House? Mask mandates, vaccine mandates, electric vehicle mandates, stuff that they knew didn't work. Even the Chinese balloon flying over, getting everything they needed because most of our politicians are bought and paid for by China. Then it took a week in office for the Trump administration to say, oh, by the way, those drones were ours. We're flying them in case of a contingency because we want to see how they work and how we'll react. And the left, for that 4 years, well, cow farts, and we got to eat bugs and stop getting our own energy, and we'll get it from Venezuela, and, cocaine also in the White House. It's like, I want to think America's back, and I think a lot of Americans are realizing that this self-imposed victim mentality isn't going to work. You're not going to be successful with it, and we're seeing it with everything. All the funding that is getting cut, and then the left is flipping out about how these are federal programs, and it's like when someone says this is military-grade stuff, that means shit. Yeah, he's cutting funding. There is hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse. And it's so easy to trim the fat. Then you got federally administered, federally planted judges putting a stop to it too. By the way, that's bullshit that a judge can say, nope, I said no. We're going to take a look at it. You better take a look at this too, because Donald Trump is here. He's not going anywhere. And I think common sense might just be prevailing, hopefully. There's talk of able-bodied people getting kicked off of welfare. Okay, stand by. Good. I joined the Navy for free, which, by the way, if you're able-bodied and young enough, you can too. I joined that. I did stuff, and I worked. I went to the ultimate equal opportunity class called Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. You have an equal opportunity to show up, and if you can't cut the mustard, then you're out. That's it, and cuts are coming to everything. And it's a good thing. I was going to surprise you with this, but it's starting to make headlines. Some of the, I don't even know if it's pork, but they cut funding for $50 million for condoms to go to Gaza. Okay? That's crazy because $50 million for condoms is roughly 500 million condoms, right? Which is a lot. And Gaza, the Hamas terrorists, you got to, ingenuity. They don't use condoms. Hamas does not use condoms for sex. Plus, it doesn't matter when you're boofing the barn animals. But they're blowing them up and making bombs and sending them over to Israel, right? That's what's going on. And so we're 50 million. Someone had to sign off on that. Who was it? Who's forgive the pun, whose lobbyist is the Trojan horse? How the shit do you think that it gets we just left the World Health Organization. We cut $37 million. This is your money. I'm talking about eggs are expensive. So it's 500 million condoms to Hamas. Donald Trump is making cuts that will help you. Even Elizabeth Warren's on board. You believe her? She's a communist. Socialist, at least. And you know what's cool about that? Bring them to the table. You want to talk cuts? Cool. Want to talk getting rid of pork? Yeah. Let's do it, man. And the whole thing is kids in cages and separating families. Look, if you're getting free stuff from the government and you were born here, but you don't do anything, I don't think you deserve it. If you come here illegally and you're taking away potential health care from Americans, you're dumbing down the schools because of Americans, you're making it more dangerous for Americans, not because of, but for Americans. A lot of Americans in Aurora, Colorado aren't complaining that the ICE just rolled in there and got out some of the big... And the left was trying to say there weren't gangs taking over apartment buildings. There were machine gun nests with long guns on top of these buildings. But ICE went in there. This is a time, too, where before 9/11, our intel and law enforcement, federal and state, were not communicating well enough because they all cared who got the fame. And then we thought, and I think they said on 9/12/2001, well, we'll never do that again. The only thing we keep forgetting to do is never forget. And we were at a point in this country because of corruption. And the Democratic Party was taken over by leftists, far leftists, to the point where criminal aliens, and not just illegal aliens. If you cross the border illegally, you're an illegal alien. But they would take them to court for their trial. As soon as it was over, whatever, they would rush them out the back of the courtroom so that ICE couldn't get them. Now, does that sound like, as an American, that has your best interest? And you should be listening overseas, too. Good Lord, open borders. Great Britain, I'm looking at you. What's going on in Europe? I'm looking at places where, again, just pointing out facts here. I'm looking at places where the most popular name in the country was Oliver. Not anymore because it's replaced by Muhammad. Open borders, unchecked. Legal migration is good, man. You start opening it, though, they're going to bring their bad stuff with them. And this is just what I see happening. So no condoms to Hamas. And just the number one pillar of a country is a safe and secure border. We haven't had it for a long time. So change is here. It's already here, too. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. That's awesome. He's immediately cutting the bullshit. CRT at the Academy's gone. We're not learning classes about that. Removing DEI at the Pentagon. So now you're actually teaching officers and soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines about counterterrorism and not white rage, which whatever that was. The trans agenda in the military. I don't want to touch on trans too much. Haven't been there. Don't know very many. Don't know the struggle, but I do know the military pretty well, and you can cut a lot of bullshit. Guns, bombs, a way to get there. Intel, stuff like that. But one person for a transgender surgery is $150,000. Then you got to recover. And then I don't know how many medications you're on. To me, that's your personal thing, but you're not in the military to just express yourself. Someone's got to go over there and fuck some people up. And that's it. I mean, Iron Dome around the United States, possibly in space. And what Pete Hegseth actually wrote, one of the coolest notes I've ever seen from the letterhead says, from the office area of the Secretary of Defense. Pete put, and I'm quoting as best as I can, DOD is not equal to or the same as DEI. Get a load of this, and this is from your boss. And guess what? I don't care retired or not. Mark Milley, you are now outranked by Major Hegseth. Sorry, SecDef Hegseth. It says, no exceptions. Name changes or delays. Those who do not comply will no longer work here. SecDef 29. That's fucking cool. And a big fuck you to everyone who voted against him. Again, if I'm wrong about Pete Hegseth and proven, then I'll admit it. But right now he's crushing it. And I think he's exactly what we needed because he's not part of the status quo. And now we're just like the VA just slashed 60 DEI bureaucrats. One dude, a DEI bureaucrat making $250,000 a year. I got this from Jesse Waters' producers. I got to give them credit for such great work. They tried to find out what a DEI bureaucrat does. There were slides in their presentation, environmental justice and promoting access to voting. All right, great, but that has nothing to do with. And anyways, and now they're just slicing these government jobs too, because boy, these arrogant pieces of, you've seen them. You've been to the DMV. You've seen the when it's quitting time, everyone's gone. How many times they can just smile at you and say, well, you don't have 9 copies of and the original of your birth certificate and your mom's blood sample or whatever. And there are good people everywhere, but I've talked to other government employees that say government employees it's such a waste. People, I heard stories about years. You can't fire it. I'm a government employee. It's some of that stuff that basically no skills. There was a tweet or something on social media from someone from the Department of State that said, because people want to leave now. Oh, because they can't work from home. Yeah, sorry that you got to go to a 40-hour work week, which, by the way, anyone who runs a business, a 40-hour work week is a day off, a week off. That's 40 hours a weekend you're usually working. But this Department of State, the State Department too, again, bureaucrats, enough said. They're the reason that we're in a lot of shit for around the world. So he or she said, I would love to be able to leave, but I have nowhere to go. I'm terrified of not being able to pay the rent or health care. Bye. What? You people, you're cheering for people who went to school board meetings because they didn't want the school to not tell them they're going to cut their kid's dick off. But now I got to feel bad for you because you don't have any skills and you want to work remote so you can go drink margaritas. No, beat it. 4 million people work for these government agencies, and 0 were elected. And I'm not so good at math, but some of the worst people in the world work for the government, and then they're not elected, yet they can make mandates, which is not a lot. The EPA, gone. Beat it. IRS, beat it. I'm excited to see all this, too. And so, guys, obviously everyone's race card this and well, not everyone. Anyone who's in the limelight that's like that gets paid off of running emotion, running amok. Al Sharpton comes to mind. I do need to defend him real quick. Bear with me. Don't yell at me. Never met him either. I think he would probably be fun to talk to, though, because a lot of people that are in certain spots are just there. It's like an act. But his thing has been forever. Well, other than paying taxes, he doesn't do that. But to show up to places and boycott, and then you force their hand so they pay you off. That's kind of a good gig. But getting rid of DEI, this is going to be interesting. I really want your thoughts on this. Al Sharpton showed up with a bunch of people marching, and a lot of people that march to stuff like this get paid, and not much. I mean, they'll do 6 hours of work for $50. Stand in front of Fox News with a bunch of signs up saying Trump is Hitler. That's their go-to. They keep saying that over and over too. But Costco is where they marched. And Costco is not abandoning their DEI, which is fine. You run a business in a capitalist society. That's great. You want to do DEI, it's all these leftist policies. But you know what's odd about Costco is how strict they are with their ID policy. You know that? You can't get a discount without a very nice ID card that's laminated. But yeah, Costco. We'll see how this. Costco's going to turn this around too. They're going to be like, you know what, my bad. And it's like, look, it's not like you're doing anything wrong. Just hire the person that's most qualified. Okay, if it happens to be, there's 3 positions. 6 people applied, but the top 3 applicants are Asian women. Hire the 3 Asian women. I don't understand the problem with hiring someone that's good at their job. But this is the change that's coming, and it is coming. It has come. It is coming quick. Tom Holm is knocking it out of the park with ICE, and it's basically just it's like a J.D. Vance moment with, I don't care, Margaret. I don't want him in my school. Margaret Brennan was interviewing J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, and now she's a pro. I was interviewed by her. I've talked to her a few times, interviewed by her. One of my first interviews around 2015-ish. And she gets what she understands the game. A lot of these people with the microphones and the camera, they're not journalists so much as they are like debating. They're not going to ask you a question, and this happens a lot. And I do it too. I've been yelled at when I have guests, so I appreciate that too. But you're not asking questions to have someone answer your questions. You're just blah, 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 trying to give them a got you. And J.D. Vance was something like, I don't care, Margaret. I don't want any of these criminals going to school with my kids. And that's fair, right? But this is an interesting way to think about this, because if we're getting like the drone thing right now, or the mask mandates, or COVID was man-made in a Chinese laboratory with help from some of our guys. And if you need, I'm not going to name them right now. Let me do some more research, but follow the pardons. Yep. Just making up diseases to make up vaccines to get rich and to make someone else rich. But why this is exciting, when are they going to release the JFK files? Are we ever going to hear the truth about the election in 2000? Are they going to tell us what? I mean, come on. What really happened on January 6th, and how many of them were feds? Come on. There's something in the JFK files they don't want us to know, because they said it's not as complex as it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. Just when you find out how deep the state is, oh boy, you might want to get some of that 2003 White House cocaine. So PETA is against Groundhog Day. That's coming up. They said they want like a gender reveal, like a cake party, because the groundhogs, especially in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, I guess get offended by seeing their shadow, and it makes them depressed. So better throw a few $1 billion at the groundhog, which I'm sure we'll do. Just because I've been talking about government waste and whatnot here. Accountability more than anything. We've heard that word a lot. President Trump fired 17 inspectors general, which are appointed unelected people who go around making sure there's no fraud, waste, and abuse, which actually puts you in a prime position to ensure the fraud, waste, and abuse helps you out. Reagan did the same thing. It's like you're seeing a lot of the common things with Jimmy Carter. He was difficult on fuel, a lot of regulations. Joe Biden did the same thing for his first 2 years till he realized how bad it was. Then he tried to lift him and started drilling, because they'll do anything to get reelected. But Reagan eliminated 16 inspectors general. He entered office in 1981. A lot of administrations want to hire their own people, and with this new crackdown on spending, hopefully we'll see how it works. Like everything, there's 73 total inspectors general. They fired 17 of them. Reagan, like I said, Reagan fired 16. Ended up hiring 5 backs. That's politics. Got to negotiate a little bit. But stuff I want to pay attention to is see what China's up to. The Ukraine thing is still too early to tell, even though President Trump did say he's going to end it. A lot of back channel stuff goes on in between everywhere. That Greenland, what Denmark's doing, they want to beef up their military presence around Greenland. I don't think that's a threat to the United States. I think people, just because of the press, are realizing how important strategically Greenland could be. The resources that could be used to make Greenland really, really rich. I think would be the 5th largest country in the world if they could get their own independence. But yeah, cake reveal, that's going to be fun. And then there was something else too, because I'm trying to do my best to report on corruption. The Panama Canal is also huge for global security and our national security, just getting ships from one ocean to the other, getting troops and supplies instead of going around South America. But I heard some math that I think with the prices for the ships to go through, I think is $5 billion a year Panama makes, and they only have 4.5 million citizens. So 5 billion, 4.5 million, rich country, right? Nope, poor as hell. Why? Well, when money goes to the top, it stays there sometimes too, and you can see corruption everywhere. And it's too bad, but that's what happens. Hopefully people can wake up with so many ways to get news. It's just important, see if you get the real news. Day in history, January 29th, 1879. This is in Montana. Custer Battlefield National Monument was established in Montana. They changed it to Battle of Little Bighorn, which I think is fair. I'm going to go out there with some cameras during some anniversaries and see that, because I'd like to get the full story. That time, 1879, there's bad people on every side, right? And on this day in 2002, President George W. Bush, in his State of the Union address, 2002, that's 1 year before we invaded Iraq. I've had thoughts on Iraq. I can talk more about that if you'd like. But in the State of the Union in 2002, January 29th, I remember I watched it at the Ready Room in Virginia Beach. But anyway, he describes regimes that sponsor terror as an axis of evil, which includes Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. So thank God all those guys are gone. Right? My favorite, though, on this day, January 29th, 1996, Robert J. O'Neill left Montana and arrived at Great Lakes, Illinois to start my naval career. The U.S. Navy, so that was boot camp so many years ago. Quite an adventure on the way in, but that opportunity is always there. If you're an able-bodied man, you're never out of the fight.